We have a brand new segment on our podcast that we're going to debut, and it is called
You Just Made the List!
That's right. A new segment called You Just Made the List. What in the world are you guys talking about? You just made the list. A list is going to be our form of a fun countdown that we're going to do. The top 10 Hell in a Cell matches of all time. Celebrating that because Bad Blood is coming up. Drew McIntyre, CM Punk inside Hell in a Cell. The first Hell in a Cell match was at Bad Blood 1997. So Andy and I are going to count down our top 10 favorite Hell in a Cell matches. Now, I'm going to give a caveat before we do this. Most of the matches on our list are the same because we all know what good Hell in a Cell matches are. Now, a couple of them might be in a little bit of a different order. That's okay. We're going to run straight through our top 10 list. So Andy's going to give me his, and then I'm going to give you mine. And then we're going to talk about the differences. And then ultimately, we're going to talk about why these matches are so great. So, Andy, let's roll through your 10.
All right, so before I jump into my 10, I'm going to give an honorable mention for one, and that is the 6-man Hell in a Cell match at Armageddon. I believe it was at Armageddon. Was it Armageddon?
Armageddon 99? Yeah. 99 or 2000, one or the other.
Maybe. Mainly just for the sole spot of Taker chokeslamming Rikishi off the top into the truck.
No, it was 2000. It was 2001 because Taker was the biker at that point.
Yeah.
So 2001.
But just for that sole moment, and then all the stuff that kind of came post that with The Rock and Kurt Angle and everything else, just everything after that was great. But I really like that one.
Yes.
My top 10 though, number 10, I've got the Usos versus the New Day, which that's just a crazy match. It was a lot of fun to watch that. Number 9, I have Undertaker versus Mankind from King of the Ring with the infamous spots. Number 8, I have Undertaker versus Edge from SummerSlam. Number 7, I have Batista versus Triple H at Vengeance. Number 6, I have Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar at No Mercy.
Ooh, not the most recent one?
I almost put that one on my list, but I think this No Mercy one is better.
Okay.
Number 5, Seth Rollins versus Edge at Crown Jewel. One of the better modern day Hell in a Cell matches that we've had in a while. Number 4, Triple H versus Cactus Jack at No Way Out. Number 3, Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at Bad Blood. Number 2, Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins from a couple years ago at Hell in a Cell. And then number 1, I think the greatest match of all time, one of the greatest matches of all time, Triple H versus Undertaker at WrestleMania 28.
Well, that is a fantastic list. Again, let me give you a few of mine because they are just a little bit different. My honorable mention that I'm going to throw out is different than yours, but it is between Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks. 2019, what a fantastic blow-off to their feud. It gets an honorable mention for me. Number 10 on my list is The Undertaker and Mankind from King of the Ring 1998. And the only reason it's on my list, I don't know if it's the only reason it's on your list. Only reason it's on mine is because it has to be. That's about it for me. Number 9 on my list was not featured on yours, and we'll talk about it. It is Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso from 2020, the I Quit Hell in a Cell match that really springboarded Roman Reigns into the character that he is today. Number 8, The Undertaker versus Edge, SummerSlam 2008, the end of this incredible feud. My next match, I wanted to keep climbing, but it only made it as high as 7, and that is the Usos versus the New Day. I really wanted to make it higher, but such a good match. Number 6, Crown Jewel 2021, Edge and Seth Rollins. Number 5, No Way Out 2000, Triple H versus Cactus Jack. Number 4, Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins, Hell in a Cell 2022. Number 3 is different than yours. Bad Blood 2004 Shawn Michaels versus Triple H. The end of that feud. Number 2, the first Hell in a Cell match. Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, Bad Blood 1997. And our number 1s are the same, Andy. The Undertaker versus Triple H, WrestleMania 28, with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee. Now, one guy that obviously continues to come up on our list is The Undertaker, of course. I would consider him Mr. Hell in a Cell. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I don't think there's not very many people out there who not only have had a lot of Hell in a Cell matches, but also just amazing Hell in a Cell matches at the same time. So I think he is Mr. Hell in a Cell.
And you would argue that the match was made for him. You know, that's his gimmick match.
Yeah.
He has the casket match, and he has this, and he has Buried Alive. So, that just proves The Undertaker is one of the greatest of all time. But that's another. That's another.
Boneyard.
The Boneyard match. Oh my goodness, of course. And there's probably a biker or something. I don't know. Anyway, well, that's a conversation for another time. But one guy that we did not expect to pop up on our list so much, we said it before we started recording, is Triple H. I mean, there are a couple of Hell in a Cell matches that he had that didn't make either of our lists. He had one with Kevin Nash. He had one with Chris Jericho, just to name a couple. So he was in a couple tags with Shawn against the McMahons and then against Cody and Ted DiBiase. So he had a lot of Hell in a Cell matches. But you included the Batista match on your countdown. What made that match stick out to you that you wanted to include it?
I think that one was kind of just like the blow off to that massive feud that they were having.
Yep.
And, obviously, like, the whole purpose of it was to elevate Batista to a massive level. And I think through this, they did that. And it was just ruthless and it was brutal. And, I growing up watching wrestling, Hell in a Cell did not mean that much to me because it was just it was a yearly pay-per-view at that point. So, like, okay, we get one of these every year. Now that they're different, like, you go back and look, it's not a match just to have a match. It's like the blow off in the feud. We're done after this. And I think that match with Batista and Triple H fit that mold very well.
Yeah, I look at my countdown, man, and let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my 10 matches are blow-offs to a feud inside Hell in a Cell. So it's used the exact right way in those situations. So I completely agree with you. I didn't include Batista and Triple H on mine, but I did include Triple H and Shawn Michaels in mine because I feel like that, that was such a personal rivalry. We talked about personal rivalries a couple weeks ago. This was such a personal rivalry between these two. This is Shawn's first rival in his comeback. And for he and Triple H to go toe-to-toe I think this, I may be wrong, but I think this is still the longest Hell in a Cell match in history, is Shawn and Triple H. Yeah, I know, right?
Triple H match, it wouldn't surprise me.
That's true. But this one, just an absolute bloodbath between these two guys. You put Taker and Brock from 2002, not 2015, 2002. What made you bring that one up and have that one on your list?
When I think of Undertaker Brock, obviously I think of that feud from post WrestleMania 30 where Taker was just trying to get his revenge on everything. I think of that one first. But if you go back and look at this, like, this was what, 2002?
Yes.
Young Brock, who was still very much green in professional wrestling, going out there and doing what he did against Taker in like a massive match like Hell in a Cell against, like we said, the Mr. Hell in a Cell. I think it's just, it was done so well. It made Brock look like a killer that he is.
Yep.
It reminded you of Taker, even though he had the hurt hand, like, he's still the Undertaker. It's like he's gonna mess some people up. He's gonna do things. It's a brutal match to watch those two guys go through it. That's part of the reason why I like their 2015 one so much, is because modern day, outside of what we've gotten the last few years, and the New Day Usos, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute.
Yep.
Modern day Hell in a Cell matches are not that violent.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, they're not crazy violent. I think the most violent thing I've seen in a Hell in a Cell match is when Randy took the screwdriver to Jeff Hardy's earlobe and started twisting it.
Oh my gosh,
that's
that was
that's
vicious.
one of the most violent things I remember. But like the 2015 one, they like removed the ring, they had the wood, everything else. But that 2002 one, man, they brutalized each other in that one.
Yeah, they did. You're exactly right. This one that was on my list that was on yours wasn't as brutal. But from what we know now with the Bloodline storyline, we talk about all the time how the Bloodline was born in the pandemic and it was strategically crafted and just focused on, and the attention to detail for the Bloodline. This springboarded all of that. This I Quit match between Roman and Jey Uso. You have Jimmy coming in, and he threw in the towel the pay-per-view before, and then he comes in and he stops, and then Roman has sympathy for both of them, and then Roman chokes out Jimmy, and then you see this ruthless, manipulative Roman Reigns. It's the genesis of the Tribal Chief character, and arguably one of the greatest characters in WWE, the way it's been developed. And I never thought I would say that about Roman Reigns, but as on top of the world as he is and how good this storyline is, I just couldn't leave this one out because it's so pivotal in that. One that neither of us left out that we have to talk about, you just mentioned it, is the Usos versus the New Day. I watched this match yesterday in prep for this. This match is so good. Oh my goodness, man. Like I kept saying, I wanted to put this one higher, but good grief. This one is so much fun to watch, dude.
Yeah, I mean, if we're real honest, tag team Hell in a Cell matches are usually not good. Like, they're not that good.
Right.
The DX, I think it was Vince and Big Show. Was it that one?
Yes.
That one's more funny than it was good.
Yep.
Like it wasn't really anything special. DX versus Legacy was not that great.
Correct.
And he's with Ted DiBiase Jr. and it's not that great, to be real honest with you. But this was like the first tag match where the rivalry fit the mode, because they had been going on banger after banger after banger in their feud.
Yes.
And then like just the spots that I remember I believe they trapped Xavier in the corner with the kendo sticks.
Yes.
And then just started wailing on him.
Yep.
Like things like that. Big E was like brutal in this match. The Usos were brutal in this match. And that was like my favorite feud during that time period, was the New Days versus Usos. But that elevated it even more to such a special level. And, that match is so special. If you haven't seen it, you definitely need to check it out, because it's a side of the Usos we're used to seeing. It's a very different side of the New Day that we've never really seen before. And it's awesome.
If I'm not mistaken, I think this pay-per-view was in September. It may have been October, so I may have my timeline a little bit off. But I say that to say it was either the month or 2 months prior at SummerSlam. They're having a kickoff show match and absolutely
it's amazing.
Stole the show. And then
I think it might have been the best match on the show.
I think you're right. So they have a kickoff match and then they go to Hell in a Cell. So it's like, you're going to put us on the kickoff? We'll show you. And they absolutely showed them. It's fantastic. All right. Most every other match that we agreed on, but the one we have to talk about is the one that we both solidified as the best Hell in a Cell match of all time, and that is The Undertaker versus Triple H, WrestleMania 28. I had a real hard time bumping the first Hell in a Cell match down from my number one spot, but man, just watching the storytelling in this match, and it was good without Shawn Michaels, but putting Shawn Michaels in there just put the whole thing over the top, man.
Yeah, I mean, this is my favorite WrestleMania match of all time. And notice I said favorite, not the greatest. It's my favorite WrestleMania match of all time.
It's fine.
Just like the storytelling of The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak at this point, obviously, like he was not there for like the whole year going into WrestleMania 27. He fought Triple H. He wasn't there basically the whole year going into WrestleMania 28. Fought Triple H again inside Hell in a Cell, the end of the era. You have Jim Ross on commentary calling everything. Like it was a proper WrestleMania Hell in a Cell match. But the moment that makes it for me is the super kick into the pedigree kick out.
Yep.
Is the greatest moment to me in WrestleMania history. Like
Wow.
I still watch that match. Every time I watch that match, I'm like, he can't kick out of this. Like, there's no way. And the point we talk about with Roman kicking out of 0.9999, Taker kicked out of 0.9999, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it was absolutely amazing. Just the whole match itself, but that moment specifically is something that I don't think will ever be topped.
It's hard to argue that, man. I don't know that I'm ready to say that's the greatest moment in WrestleMania history because I don't exactly know what that is, but that false finish is 100% up there. There is no doubt about it. So that's our top 10 Hell in a Cell matches. We appreciate.
I got a question for you.
Yes, go for it. Yep.
I'm throwing this to you at the fly. We've talked about the 10 greatest. Do you know what do you think is the worst of the worst? Because we always have to talk about the best and the worst. What's the worst of the worst? Off the top of your head.
I know what you're going to say, so go ahead and say what you're going to say.
There's two I have.
Oh, you have two?
What I have.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead with your two.
Yeah.
Go ahead with
The
your
first
two.
one is probably Seth Rollins versus The Fiend.
That's what I figured you would say. Yep.
That one's horrible. I think the year before was Strowman and Roman.
Yes, it
Where
was.
Brock got involved and they DQ'd it. Like back-to-back years, man. Those two Hell in a Cell matches were horrible.
Yep.
Absolutely horrible.
Yep. Mine, I don't want to say mine is the worst, but I'm going to rephrase your question and say the most pointless. Bobby Lashley versus Xavier Woods.
Went on a random Raw, too.
Yes. Yes. And then they got the wild hair to bring it back on SmackDown, and that's when they had Roman and Rey Mysterio inside the cell. So you had the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. The next night on Raw they had another one, and then SmackDown they had another one.
Lashley and Xavier, I think, was supposed to happen on the pay-per-view. And then like the week before, they're like, nope, we're doing it next week on Raw. Just kidding, never mind.
Yep.
And then they did it on Raw. I completely forgot about that. That was rough.
Just pointless. So I brought up the good thing in the pandemic with Roman and Jey Uso, and then we revisited the bad.
There's a lot of bad.
Oh man, there was a whole lot of bad. But there's a whole lot of good on our YouTube channel. If you're just now checking it out, make sure you're subscribed. If these long form episodes aren't your cup of tea, we have playlists of everything shortened out into segments. You can check out the old school stuff, the new school stuff, some trivia, pay-per-view previews, recaps, the whole 9 yards, interviews. We got an interview with Byron Saxon on there. Go check all of that out. We would appreciate that so much. Like those videos, get those viewership hours ticking up, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We would appreciate that so much.